This short video will briefly introduce conformity as well as the foot in the door and the door in the face techniques. Before launching into a discussion about the foot in the door and door in the face techniques, as well as the seminal research studies that have examined this topic, I want to first give a brief introduction of the terms and definitions regarding conformity that actually leads to the inception of the foot in the door and door in the face techniques. Chapter 8 of the textbook discusses conformity and specifically the ways in which conformity influences behavior. Conformity is when an individual alters their behavior or attitudes because of the influence of another person or group of people. Now, studies have shown that conformity is often caused by two different types of social influences: informational social influence, as well as normative social influence. Informational social influence is when one observes others as a way in which to judge how to behave in a given situation, especially in a situation that is hard to interpret. For example, in 1936, Muzafer Sherif conducted a study that precisely demonstrated the effects of informational social influence, where participants were first asked to specify the distance by which a speck of light would move within a dark room. Unbeknownst to the participants, the speck of light was not actually moving. However, due to an autokinetic effect, the sole light in the dark environment would merely appear to be moving. The participants were then again asked to specify the distance the light was moving in the dark room, but this time the trials included the addition of two other participants. To conclude the experiment, the participant was asked to partake in the same task once again, alone. Results of the experiment exhibited that participants were more likely to conform their estimated distance to the estimates of the others and continued to report these estimates when partaking in the same task alone. So Sherif has, in essence, demonstrated that when faced with an ambiguous task, people do tend to look to others to evaluate the situation and find the appropriate answer. Whereas normative social influence is based off of this concept of social norms, in which society or a group dictates what is the proper way in which to act, think, and feel. So the normative social influence becomes the influence of a group, leading the individual to conform or follow their behaviors and attitudes for the purpose of being quote-unquote liked and accepted by the group, and consequently avoiding rejection of the group. Research on the normative social influence has been supported by the famous Solomon Asch line judgment studies of the 1950s, which is described in detail in a separate video for this section. Now that we have this understanding of conformity and the informative versus normative ways in which people are socially influenced, we can look further into how these social influences are used by others to get people to do what they want them to do, with techniques like the foot in the door and door in the face. Now, the foot in the door technique relays the possibility of one persuading another to comply to a large appeal, if they first comply to a smaller appeal. Studies such as the one conducted by Friedman and Fraser in 1966 support the door in the face technique, where participants who complied to the smaller appeal of putting up a sign in their window advocating safe driving were more likely to subsequently put a bigger sign advocating a similar safe driving message in their front lawn. This foot in the door technique is often successful in part because individuals have a need to be consistent with their actions and beliefs. Therefore, if one acquiesces to a small request, why wouldn't they acquiesce to a similar, albeit larger request as well? On the other hand, if one makes a larger appeal first that is likely to be declined, a subsequent smaller appeal is likely to be accepted, a technique commonly known as door in the face. Such a technique is supported by studies such as Chaldean researchers, where in 1975, participants were more likely to accept an offer of chaperoning children for a couple of hours at the zoo if they were first previously asked to help out at a juvenile detention center for the next 2 years. This concludes the brief introduction to conformity, social influences, and how individuals utilize such strategies to manipulate others.